Today, we're jumping into a story about a series of high-stakes diplomatic meetings that were, by all accounts, a complete and total failure. But here's the crazy part. That very failure ended up creating an entirely new country and redrawing the map of South Asia forever.
So let's get right into it. It sounds like a total contradiction, right? How can something that produces zero results, a total bust, ends up having a world-changing impact? Well, that is the strange and fascinating story of the Round Table conferences that took place in London back in the early 1930s.
So picture this. Between 1930 and 1932, all these key players from British India get together. Their mission? Draft a new constitution. But after 3 separate conferences, they agreed on pretty much nothing. And yet, buried in the rubble of that failure, the political groundwork was accidentally being laid for the creation of Pakistan. All right, to really get why these talks in London were so important, we've got to rewind a little. We have to look at the political scene in British India in the late 1920s. And honestly, it was a total pressure cooker. You had this rising tide of nationalism mixed with deepening divides between communities. Something was bound to happen.
And you can see right here how things just kept escalating. A whole series of events just pushed the two biggest communities, Hindus and Muslims, further and further apart. You have reforms back in 1919 that pleased nobody. Then in 1927, an all-British commission shows up and Indians are like, no thanks, and start boycotting everywhere. And then a proposed constitution in 1928 really worried Muslim leaders. So the Round Table conferences, they were supposed to be this last-ditch effort to find some common ground.
So, with all that tension brewing, the stage was set in London for what was basically an ideological showdown, a battle for the very soul of what an independent India would look like. Now, at the very first conference, the biggest political party, the Indian National Congress, just didn't show up. And that was a huge deal. It basically gave Muslim leaders like Muhammad Ali Jinnah and Allama Iqbal an open field. They had the stage all to themselves to make their case to the British. And their argument was powerful. We're not just a minority you need to protect. We are a separate nation that deserves an equal voice. This was really the first time the idea of a separate Muslim state got a serious hearing on the world stage.
Okay, but then came the second conference. And this was the real game changer. Why? Because this time, Congress decided to show up. And they were represented by one man and one man only, Mahatma Gandhi.
And this slide right here, this is where you can really see just how far apart the two sides were. It was a total clash of ideas. On one side, you have the Muslim League demanding things like separate electorates and more power for the provinces to protect their unique identity. On the other side, you have Congress, with Gandhi as their voice, pushing for one single unified government and rejecting any kind of special treatment based on religion. I mean, these two positions were just worlds apart.
Gandhi's core belief was straightforward. Congress speaks for everyone. Hindus, Muslims, everyone. But you have to see it from the other side. For Muslim leaders, this felt like their fears and their distinct identity were just being brushed aside. They worried they'd just be swallowed up in a future state dominated by the Hindu majority. The gap between them just got wider and wider.
Now, this total breakdown in talks had a massive personal impact on one person in particular, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And that brings us to his incredible transformation. You know, it's pretty wild when you think about it. Jinnah actually began his career as an ambassador of Hindu-Muslim unity. He truly wanted cooperation. But these conferences, they just completely shattered that hope for him. He grew so frustrated with the deadlock that he just left. He retreated to London in this self-imposed exile to just think. And in that time, something changed. He decided a united India just wasn't going to work. When he returned in 1934, he was a new man with a new mission, to make the Muslim League the one and only voice for Muslims. And that profound personal change in Jinnah, well, it led to a massive shift in political goals. The failure in London directly planted the seeds for an entirely new national dream. So this is really the crucial point of the whole story. The entire goalpost moved. Before the conferences, the conversation was about getting political protections or safeguards within a united India. But after the conferences, the goal shifted completely. It became about demanding a separate, sovereign homeland outside of it. And the engine driving this whole shift was something called the two-nation theory. The idea basically was that Hindus and Muslims weren't just two different religious communities living in one country, they were two distinct nations. And for the people who believed this, the complete deadlock at the Round Table conferences was all the proof they needed. It was the ultimate sign that living together in one single country was just impossible.
And it really didn't take long for this new idea to become official policy. In 1940, just 8 years after that final failed conference, the Muslim League passed the Lahore Resolution. And that was it, the formal demand for the creation of an independent state, Pakistan. The failure in London had become the very justification for separation.
So let's pull back and look at the big picture here, at the legacy of what happened in London. Because when we look back, it's not really about what these conferences achieved. It's all about the powerful, unintended consequences of their failure.
So, what have we learned? Well, for one, the talks made it crystal clear that the ideological gap was just too wide to cross. For the Muslim leadership, it was a harsh political education, showing them that their goals just couldn't be met through negotiation inside a united framework. And in a strange twist of history, this diplomatic disaster was actually incredibly productive. It literally created a new political path.
So while everyone points to 1940 and Lahore as the moment Pakistan was demanded, the truth is a little more complicated. The real ideological groundwork, the political roots of that idea, were solidified years earlier in those quiet, failed negotiating rooms in London.
And that leaves us with this one incredible question to think about. Can a diplomatic failure ever actually be a catalyst for creation? The story of the Roundtable Conferences seems to suggest that, yeah, sometimes the biggest changes in history don't come from agreement, but from the complete and utter failure to find any.